The lawyer's eyes met mine across the mahogany table. His smile was cold. Everyone else was laughing. I was holding a tiny rusty key that looked like it came from a junkyard. My name is Lena Hartley. I'm 26 years old. And this is the story of how one key changed everything? I was only 8 when my parents died in that car crash. The rain was pouring that night. I still remember the knock on the door. The police officer's sad face. Then everything went black. My Uncle Jonathan and Aunt Clara took me in. But they never let me forget I was a burden. Lena, you're eating too much, Aunt Clara would say. Money doesn't grow on trees. Why can't you be more like Marcus and Isabel? Uncle Jonathan would ask. They have ambition. Marcus was my cousin. He was 5 years older than me. Always showing off his expensive clothes, always talking about money. Isabel was 2 years older. She was pretty and knew it. She would steal my toys when we were kids, then smile when adults praised her. But there was one person who never made me feel small. Grandpa Edwin. Edwin Voss was my grandfather. He built a shipping empire from nothing, oil tankers, rare minerals. He was worth billions, but he lived simply. Lena, he would say, real strength comes from inside. Not from what you own. Everyone else in the family wanted his money. They would visit him and talk about business. About investments, about what they deserved. I just wanted to spend time with him. 3 years ago, something happened that changed everything. I was 23 then, working at a small coffee shop, trying to save money for college. I was visiting Grandpa Edwin on a Sunday. We were in his study suddenly. He grabbed his chest. Lena, I can't. Breathe. His face turned white. He fell to the floor. I called 911 immediately. Then I held his hand. Stay with me, Grandpa. Please stay with me. The ambulance came. I rode with him to the hospital. I stayed all night. Where was Uncle Jonathan? At a golf tournament. Where was Marcus? Partying with friends. Where was Isabel? Shopping in Paris. They all showed up the next day with flowers and fake smiles. Oh, Dad, we were so worried, Uncle Jonathan said. But Grandpa Edwin looked at me. You're the only one who was really here. Lena, that night, he made me promise something. Take care of yourself, sweetheart. Trust no one but yourself. I didn't know what he meant then. But I was about to find out. Last month, Grandpa Edwin passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 82. The funeral was huge. Business partners came, politicians came. Even some movie stars came, but I noticed something strange. Uncle Jonathan was smiling. Aunt Clara kept checking her phone. Marcus and Isabel were whispering about vacation plans. They weren't sad. They were excited. Finally, I heard Marcus whisper to Isabel. We'll get what we deserve. My heart broke. These people never loved Grandpa Edwin. They just wanted his money. After the service, the lawyer approached me. Mr. Stevens was a serious man with gray hair. Miss Hartley, he said. Your grandfather's will reading is tomorrow. Please be there at 2 p.m. Of course, I said. I wouldn't miss it. The next day I walked into Mr. Stevens' law office. It was fancy, leather chairs, expensive paintings. Crystal glasses filled with water. Uncle Jonathan was already there. He was wearing his best suit. Looking confident, Aunt Clara sat beside him. Her jewelry sparkled. She looked like she was going to a party. Not a will reading. Marcus was checking his phone. Probably looking at expensive cars online. Isabel was fixing her makeup. Getting ready for her close-up moment. Then there was me. Wearing a simple navy blue dress from a thrift store. Feeling out of place, Mr. Stevens cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming. Let's begin. He opened a thick folder. Edwin Voss was very specific about his wishes. My stomach twisted. Here it comes. I thought, the moment everyone finds out how little I matter. To my son Jonathan, Mr. Stevens read. I leave the Manhattan penthouse apartment. Uncle Jonathan smiled big. Thank you, Dad, he whispered. To Jonathan's wife, Clara. I leave the summer house in the Hamptons. Aunt Clara clapped her hands softly. Her eyes were shining. To my grandson, Marcus. I leave the collection of vintage sports cars. Marcus pumped his fist. Yes! I knew it. To my granddaughter Isabel, I leave the jewelry collection and the yacht. Isabel actually squealed. Oh my God! The yacht! I can't believe it. Everyone was so happy, hugging each other, taking pictures, planning their new lives. Then Mr. Stevens looked at me, the room went quiet. And to my granddaughter Lena, my heart was pounding. Everyone stared at me, some looked curious, others looked sorry for me. Mr. Stevens reached into his briefcase. He pulled out something tiny, something old, something that looked like junk, a small, rusty key. He slid it across the table to me. I leave the safety deposit box at First National Bank. Box number 247, that's it. A key to some old box? Marcus started laughing first, then Isabel joined in, even Aunt Clara giggled behind her hand. A key? Marcus said, that's hilarious. What's in there? His old socks? Maybe some dusty books, Isabel added. Isabel added, or expired coupons. Uncle Jonathan shook his head. Poor Lena. She gets a box of junk while we get real treasure. Mr. Stevens looked uncomfortable. The will also mentions that Miss Hartley should visit the bank immediately. Today, if possible. Of course it does, Aunt Clara said with fake sweetness. Edwin always felt sorry for the poor orphan girl. My face burned with embarrassment. But I took the key. It was cold in my hand. It didn't look like much. Just old metal with some numbers carved on it. Thank you, I whispered. As everyone left, they were making plans. Marcus was already calling car dealerships. Isabel was looking up yacht clubs. Uncle Jonathan was talking to real estate agents. No one asked if I wanted to grab dinner. No one offered to drive me to the bank. I was alone again. But something inside me felt different. Grandpa Edwin wouldn't give me junk. He loved me. This key meant something. I just had to find out what. First National Bank was in downtown Manhattan. Old building, marble floors, high ceilings. I walked up to the counter. My hands were shaking a little. Hi, I said to the banker. I need to access safety deposit box 247. The banker was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. Of course, do you have the key and identification? I showed her both. She led me to a private room. Brought the box, left me alone. The box was bigger than I expected. Heavy too. My heart was racing as I put the key in the lock. It turned easily. The box opened with a soft click. At first, I saw papers, legal documents, bank statements. Nothing exciting, but then I saw an envelope. My name was written on it in Grandpa Edwin's handwriting. My dearest Lena, it said. I opened it carefully. Inside was a letter. And something else that made me gasp. Credit cards, bank access codes, account numbers, but not for regular banks. These were offshore accounts. Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Monaco. And the numbers, oh my God, the numbers. $2.8 billion in the Cayman account. $1.5 billion in Switzerland. $800 million in Monaco. My hands started shaking. This couldn't be real. I read Grandpa Edwin's letter. My sweet Lena. If you're reading this, I am gone. But my love for you lives on. 3 years ago when I had my heart attack, everyone showed their true colors. But you, my darling girl, you held my hand, you stayed with me. You cried real tears that day. I knew something important. You are the only one in this family who loves me for me. Not for my money. The others think they got the real inheritance. The penthouse, the cars, the yacht, but those are just things. Pretty objects that will break or lose value. You, my dear, get something much better. You get my real fortune. The money I made from oil shipping, from rare mineral trades, from investments they knew nothing about. But this comes with responsibility. Use this money wisely. Help people. Build something good. Don't become like them. I trust you, Lena. I always have. Love forever, Grandpa Edwin. P.S. The family thinks they won. Let them think that. For now, I sat in that little bank room and cried. Not because of the money, because of the love. Grandpa Edwin trusted me. He saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. But then another feeling came. anger, all those years of being treated like nothing. All those insults, all those times they made me feel small. They had no idea what was coming. The next few weeks were crazy. I had to learn about offshore banking, international transfers, investment management. I hired the best financial advisors in New York. Lawyers, accountants, people who dealt with billionaires every day. Miss Hartley, my new financial advisor, said, "You're now one of the richest women in America. Top 50 easily." It felt surreal. 3 weeks ago, I was making minimum wage at a coffee shop. Now I could buy the coffee shop chain. But I didn't change my lifestyle immediately. I kept living in my small apartment. Kept dressing simply. Kept working at the coffee shop. I wanted to watch my family first. See what they would do with their inheritance. And boy, did I get a show. Marcus bought 5 sports cars in the first week. Then he crashed 2 of them racing on highways. Isabel threw parties on the yacht every night. Posted everything on social media. Spent $50,000 on champagne in one weekend. Uncle Jonathan tried to flip the penthouse immediately. Wanted to sell it for double the price. Aunt Clara hired a personal chef, a personal trainer, and a personal shopper. All in the same day. They were burning through money like it was paper. But that's not what made me angry. What made me angry was how they talked about Grandpa Edwin. I overheard Marcus at a restaurant. "Thank God the old man finally died. Now we can live like kings." I saw Isabel's Instagram post. "Finally free from boring family dinners. Time to live my life." Uncle Jonathan told people at his country club, "My father was too careful with money. Now I can invest it properly." They didn't love him. They never did. That's when I decided. It was time for justice. I spent 2 months planning carefully. Studying each family member, learning their weaknesses, their debts, their secrets. Here's what I discovered. Marcus was already $200,000 in debt from gambling. The cars were being repossessed. He was desperate for more money. Isabel had a cocaine problem. She was spending thousands every week on drugs. The yacht parties were getting out of control. Uncle Jonathan had made terrible investments. He was about to lose the penthouse because he couldn't pay the property taxes. Aunt Clara was being blackmailed by someone who knew about her affair with her personal trainer. They were all falling apart, but they were too proud to admit it. Perfect. I started with Marcus. I waited until Marcus was really desperate. His cars were gone. He owed money to dangerous people. He was scared. Then I had my lawyer contact him. "Mr. Voss," the lawyer said, "I represent an anonymous investor. They're interested in buying your grandfather's vintage car collection for $500,000 cash." Marcus was confused. "But I already got the cars from the will." "Exactly. My client wants to buy them from you." Marcus's eyes lit up. $500,000 would solve his problems. Deal, he said immediately. But here's the thing. I already own those cars. Grandpa Edwin had transferred them to offshore companies I controlled. Years ago, the will just gave Marcus keys to empty garages. When Marcus went to deliver the cars, they weren't there. He called Uncle Jonathan, panicking, "Dad, the cars are missing. Someone stole them." Uncle Jonathan was furious. "What do you mean missing? Check the insurance." But there was no insurance because the cars didn't belong to Marcus. My lawyer revealed the truth. The cars were sold by Edwin Voss 3 years ago. Your grandson has been trying to sell property he never owned. Marcus lost the $500,000. Plus, he now owed money to my fake buyer, actually my lawyer's firm, for breach of contract. He was ruined, but I wasn't done with him yet. While Marcus was dealing with his car disaster, I focused on Isabel. She was still throwing parties on the yacht, living like a movie star, but she had a problem. The yacht needed repairs, big, expensive repairs. The engine was failing. The hull had damage. But Isabel had already spent most of her jewelry money on parties and drugs. That's when I made my move. I had a marine engineer who worked for me secretly inspect the yacht. He gave Isabel terrible news. "Miss Voss, this yacht is dangerous. The engine could fail at sea. You need $300,000 in repairs immediately." Isabel freaked out. "300,000? I don't have that." I'm sorry, the engineer said, but I have to report this to the Coast Guard. They'll impound the yacht until repairs are made. Isabel tried to call Uncle Jonathan for help, but he had his own problems. She tried to get a loan using the yacht as collateral, but the bank said it was worthless without repairs. She was trapped. That's when my lawyer approached her with an offer. Miss Voss, my client wants to buy your yacht cash deal. $200,000. It was way below market value. But Isabel was desperate. I'll take it, she said. The buyer was me, of course. But Isabel didn't know that. After the sale, I had the yacht properly repaired. It was actually in good condition. The marine engineer had lied about the problems. Isabel lost a $2 million yacht for $200,000. And she spent that money on drugs within a month. Now she was broke too. Uncle Jonathan thought he was smart. He was planning to sell the penthouse for $10 million. Way more than it was worth, but he needed to pay property taxes first. $400,000, money he had already spent on bad investments. So he took out a loan against the penthouse, high interest, short term, very risky. That's when I struck. I bought his debt, through shell companies of course. Now the first owned his loan. When payment was due, I had my lawyers call him. Mr. Voss, your loan payment is overdue. We need $600,000 immediately, or we foreclose on the penthouse. Uncle Jonathan was shocked. $600,000? The loan was for $400,000. Interest and penalties, sir. It's all in the contract you signed. He tried to get another loan, but his credit was ruined from the bad investments. He tried to sell the penthouse quickly, but I had my real estate contacts spread rumors about problems with the building. No buyers came forward. Uncle Jonathan lost the penthouse. It was auctioned off. I bought it for half price through another shell company. He was homeless and broke, just like he had made me feel for years. Aunt Clara's downfall was the most satisfying, because she had been the cruelest to me. Remember her affair with the personal trainer? And the blackmail. I was the blackmailer. I had hired a private investigator to follow her. Got photos, got evidence, then I started demanding money. But I didn't want her money. I wanted her dignity first. I made her fire all her staff. Sell the jewelry, the blackmail letters said. Or I tell Jonathan everything. Then I made her sell her expensive clothes. Her artwork, her designer handbags. She was getting desperate. But she was too afraid to tell Uncle Jonathan the truth. Finally, I sent her one last letter. Meet me tonight. Bring $100,000 cash. Last payment. She showed up at the meeting place. A parking garage downtown, shaking with fear. I was waiting in the shadows, wearing a hood, voice disguised. Clara, I said. You look terrible. She was crying. Please, I've given you everything. I have nothing left. You're right, I said. You have nothing left. No money, no dignity. No family who respects you. Then I stepped into the light. Pulled back my hood. Aunt Clara's face went white. Lena? But how? Why? Remember when you said I was just a burden? I asked, remember when you made me eat dinner scraps while your kids got steak? She was shaking now. Lena, please. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Too late for sorry, Aunt Clara. I showed her photos on my phone. Her affair, her lies, her cruelty to me over the years. Here's what happens now, I said. You tell Uncle Jonathan everything tonight. Or I send these photos to everyone you know. She begged me not to. But I was done being nice. The next morning, Uncle Jonathan threw her out. She had to move in with her sister in New Jersey. No money, no friends, nothing. 6 months after the will reading, I called a family meeting. I rented the same law office where we had met before. Marcus came because he was still hoping for money somehow. Isabel came because she was broke and desperate. Uncle Jonathan came because he was living in a cheap hotel and needed help. Aunt Clara came because she had nowhere else to go. They all looked terrible, tired, worried, broken. I walked in wearing a designer suit, professional, confident, rich. Hi. Family, I said with a smile. They stared at me. Something was different about me, they could feel it. Lena, Uncle Jonathan said slowly. You look good. I feel good, Uncle Jonathan. Really good. I sat down at the head of the table, where Mr. Stevens had sat during the will reading. I know you're all wondering why I called this meeting, I said. Marcus was fidgeting. Look, Lena, if this is about money, I can't help anyone right now. Neither can I, Isabel added quickly. Actually, I said, I called you here to help you. Their eyes lit up. Finally, they thought someone to save them. But first, I continued, I want to show you something. I pulled out a folder. The same kind Mr. Stevens had used 6 months ago. You all laughed at my inheritance, a rusty key, a dusty box, remember? They nodded. Marcus was even smiling a little. Probably thinking about that day when he felt so superior. Well, I want to show you what was in that box. I opened the folder. Pulled out bank statements, account summaries, investment reports. Their faces changed as they read the numbers. 2.8 billion, 1.5 billion, $800 million. Total, $5.1 billion. This is impossible, Uncle Jonathan whispered. Lena, are these fake? Marcus asked. I smiled. Call the banks, check the account numbers. It's all real. Isabel was crying. Not sad tears, angry tears. But how? Why you? We were his real family. Were you? I asked. Let me read you something. I pulled out Grandpa Edwin's letter. Read it word for word when I finished. The room was silent. Uncle Jonathan's face was red. That's not fair, I am his son. A son who was playing golf while he had a heart attack, I said calmly. I loved him too. Marcus protested. You called him the old man and celebrated when he died, I replied. Aunt Clara was sobbing. We didn't know. We didn't understand. You understood perfectly, I said. You just didn't care? I looked at each of them. These people who had made my childhood miserable, who had treated me like garbage, who had laughed when I got a rusty key. Now they were broken, desperate. At my mercy I had won. Completely and totally. But revenge felt different than I expected. It didn't make me happy. It just made me tired. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm going to give each of you a choice. They leaned forward, hope in their eyes. Choice 1. I help you financially, pay your debts. Give you enough money to live comfortably. But you have to do something for me. Anything? Uncle Jonathan said quickly. You have to apologize publicly to everyone you know. Oh, for how you treated me, for how you disrespected Grandpa Edwin's memory. For being greedy and cruel. Their faces fell. Public humiliation was worse than poverty for people like them. What's choice 2? Marcus asked. Choice 2. I give you nothing. You stay broke. You figure out your own problems. But you keep your pride. Silence, I stood up. You have 1 week to decide. Call my lawyer with your answer. As I walked toward the door, Aunt Clara called out, Lena, wait. I turned around. I am sorry, I really am. You didn't deserve how we treated you. Her apology seemed genuine. For the first time in my life, she looked at me like I was a real person. Thank you, Aunt Clara, I said. That means something. Then I left them to think about their choices. Over the next week, they each called my lawyer with their decisions. Aunt Clara chose option 1. She made a public Facebook post apologizing to me. She admitted she had been cruel and jealous. She asked for forgiveness. It was embarrassing for her, but she did it. So I paid off her debts and gave her enough money to buy a small house in New Jersey. Not rich, but comfortable. Isabel also chose option 1. She went on Instagram and admitted she had been spoiled and selfish. She thanked me for being kind to Grandpa Edwin when she wasn't. She promised to get help for her drug problem. I paid for her rehabilitation and gave her money for a fresh start. But not too much, she needed to learn responsibility. Marcus chose option 2. His pride was too important to him. He refused to apologize publicly. So I gave him nothing, last I heard. He was working at a car dealership, not as a salesman, as a mechanic. It was good for him to work with his hands for once. Uncle Jonathan also chose option 2. He said he would rather be homeless than humiliated. He got his wish. I heard he was living in a shelter in Brooklyn. Maybe someday he would swallow his pride. But probably not with my family drama finally settled. I could focus on what really mattered. I quit the coffee shop, started a foundation in Grandpa Edwin's name. We help orphan children get education and support. I bought back the penthouse from myself. It was complicated, but legal, and turned part of it into offices for the foundation. I also started investing in small businesses. The coffee shop where I used to work, a local bookstore, a community center. Grandpa Edwin was right. Money is just a tool. What matters is how you use it. But the best part of my new life was something unexpected. David Martinez was a social worker at one of the shelters I started funding. He was helping kids who had lost their parents. Just like me, he didn't know I was rich when we met. I was dressed simply, volunteering at the shelter. We talked about the kids, about life, about dreams. He was kind, funny, real when I finally told him about the money. He said something that made me love him. "That's nice, Lena. But I fell in love with you when I thought you worked at a coffee shop. We're getting married next month, small ceremony, just close friends. People who love us for who we are, not what we have." Sometimes people ask me if I regret the revenge. If I feel bad about what happened to my family. The honest answer is complicated. I regret that it was necessary. I wish they had loved Grandpa Edwin the way I did. I wish they had treated me with kindness, but I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret honoring Grandpa Edwin's memory. I don't regret showing them that actions have consequences. The truth is, that rusty key didn't just unlock a safety deposit box. It unlocked something in me. Strength I didn't know I had. Courage I had buried under years of feeling small. Grandpa Edwin's real gift wasn't the billions of dollars. It was his belief in me, his trust, his love. And that's worth more than all the money in the world. What did you think of this story? And tell me, has something like this ever happened to you? Share it with me in the comments. I'd love to hear.